You want me to start? Can I start?
Anita, give me another minute or two. We have to make some housekeeping announcements here. 1 second. And we still have a lot of people joining.
No problem, Danny.
Okay.
Okay, Danny.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear
Hi, everybody. Just a few housekeeping. This is a little bit complex. We unfortunately, despite all our efforts, do not have Portuguese translation. I apologize. We're trying to fix it. We have two volunteer translators in Brazil, but the system didn't work. We don't know why. We have Spanish translation. And for those who don't know how to do it, at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a computer, in the middle, there's a globe. And it says, on my screen, it says interpretation. You click on it and you choose the language that you want to hear. You'll have a separate channel. Unfortunately, as I said, we don't have Portuguese right now. We have Spanish, and otherwise, if you want to hear in English, which is the language of the Zoom, you just keep it as it is. Otherwise, you can click on Spanish and you will get the Spanish translation. So I think we can start. We're up to 328, almost 330 participants.
Yeah, Danny, I will say in Spanish. Hay traducción simultánea en español. Abajo hay un botoncito que dice interpretation. De ahí pueden escuchar y sale en español. Las que quieren escuchar en el idioma original es en inglés. Lo sentimos mucho, pero en portugués teníamos todo preparado. ¿Hay algún problema técnico? Si en adelante podemos, lo haremos en portugués. De cualquier manera, estamos ¿cómo se dice? Recording. Estamos haciendo un recording y se lo podemos mandar después y pueden ponerle subtítulos. Okay. Thank you, friends. Dear friends, thank you for being here. It's overwhelming. We have 340 participants, so thank you very much. I would like to start our meeting with a moment of silence to honor the memory of more than 1,400 Israeli citizens and soldiers murdered by Hamas, to pray for the full recovery of more than 5,000 wounded, and for the immediate return of the 220 hostages being held in Gaza. So please, let's stand up. Please be seated. Thank you for joining us today. We will start with a short video. Danny, please go ahead.
קוראים לי ליאור, זאת אימא שלי. אימא שלי בכל מובן, גידלה אותי מאז שאני פספוס בן 14. עם כל הצערות שעשיתי והכל, תמיד קיבלתי את החיבוק ואת האהבה. אחרי 14 שנה צמחתי, פרחתי, אני בשדרות, וקרה מה שקרה, הבית נפגע מיריות, מקסאמים. אחרי כל כך הרבה זמן בממ"ד עם 3 הילדים. המקום הראשון שקיבל אותנו ואמר לנו, אתם נשארים פה, זה הבית שלכם, הכל בסדר. דודה שלי הייתה מאוד בסטרס, כי לא יצא מהממ"ד, היינו נעולים בממ"ד, ניסו לפתוח לנו כמה פעמים את הבית, ויריות בתוך הבית. אז הילדה של רחל, היא גאיה, פשוט תפסה אותה ביד, בואי. הילדה שלי פתאום נפתחה, פתאום היא ראתה עוד משהו. תהילה הייתה בפנימיה, לקחה אותה, נכנסו אליהם לבית, היא פעם ראשונה פתחה טלוויזיה אחרי שבוע, שיחקה במשחקים, אם נצלם את הילדה שלי, תראו אותה כאילו ילדה רגילה. והבן שלי הוא גם מסתובב פה, זה מדהים לראות אותו איכשהו. המזל שלי שיש לי ויצו הדסים, מאז שאני קטן דאגו לי, וגם היום כשאני בוגר באבא, זה עדיין הבית שלי, זה עדיין המקום שדואג לי, בלי פסיק או בלי שום תחת, תמיד. תודה רבה.
תודה רבה, תודה.
Thank you for that video. I would like to begin by saying that we are acutely aware of the deep distress that you and all those who love Israel around the world have been feeling since that terrible day on October 7th, the Black Sabbath, we call it. In some ways, it is even harder for you than it is for us, because every morning you go out into a world that does not share the terrible shock and grief that you feel. The words Babi Yar and Einsatzgruppen do not pop into their heads. Their world didn't turn upside down on October 7th. Experiencing this traumatic time here in Israel is in some ways easier than being far away. After all, mourning is meant to be done in a group. That's the role of the Shiva in Jewish tradition, to mourn together. As individuals and families, we may have been overwhelmed by the grief and outrage. But Wizo, as Israel's leading educational and social welfare organization, whose fundamental responsibility is to the people of Israel, could not allow ourselves to be paralyzed by this tragedy. And we sprung right into action. We immediately understood that this was going to be a long period, weeks, likely months, of dislocation and disruption. So we formed an emergency cabinet led by me and our CEO, Mira Menes. By the way, Mira is here with us today. Mira, if you can say hello, so everybody can see who you are and where you are, even though it's 375 people now. Our first task was to reach out to our entire Wizo community in Israel, our 6,000 employees and thousands of volunteers, to make sure everyone was accounted for and offer initial aid and comfort to those affected by the massacre and its nightmarish aftermath. Every one of us is going through difficult times, and nearly every home and family has been touched by this tragedy. Some have lost loved ones to murder or kidnapping. Many others have husbands, brothers, children, and grandchildren who have been drafted for emergency service, Miluim, in the IDF, most of them on the dangerous front lines of the war. As of today, 70 Wizo employees have been called up for emergency military service, and we're in touch with the families of every single one of them. This Friday, we're bringing them halot and cakes and cookies to make sure they know that we have their backs. Simultaneously, we began to take stock of the status of our hundreds of educational and social welfare institutions, our daycare centers, schools and youth villages, women's shelters, and much more. We understood immediately in the first hours of the war that the country would be closing down, schools and daycare centers shattered, and the economy at a standstill. Given this extreme level of uncertainty, we decided it was critical to take several immediate and drastic steps, such as an almost total freeze on discretionary spending. In an organization as large and diverse as Wizo, this is a lot easier said than done, but within a few days, we succeeded in establishing full control of expenditures and reduced them to the barest minimum. Within days, we began putting multiple initiatives in motion, such as convincing the government to allow us to open 11 emergency daycare centers serving the children of critical medical personnel in 7 major hospitals around the country, so their parents could be free to perform their life-saving work on more than 4,000 Israelis wounded on October 7th. For about 10 days, these 11 Wizo centers were the only daycare centers opened in Israel. This week, I visited one of these daycare centers at Shamir Medical Center near Rishon LeZion, and I met some of the parents who work in the hospital. One of them, a scientist who works in the pathology department, told me something that I cannot get out of my mind. You know, as a pathologist, she normally works with tissue samples to help doctors diagnose. But since the war began, she has spent all her time identifying the bodies of Israelis murdered by Hamas. Tragically, that task has not yet been completed. The numbers are still rising and more bodies are still being identified. Another emotional meeting I had this week was with an Ethiopian woman named Ziva Taka, whose 21-year-old son Binyamin was killed on the first day of the war while serving as a soldier in the Golani Infantry Brigade. Ziva's personal story encompasses all the different phases of Wizo. Her son Binyamin was a graduate of Wizo's Nachlat Yehuda Youth Village. 15 years ago, Ziva and her children spent a year in the Wizo shelter for women victims of domestic violence in Jerusalem. And then, after she left the shelter, she worked for many years as a teacher in the Wizo Daycare Center in Beit HaKeren in Jerusalem, a few meters from the shelter. We spent a long time talking and comforting Ziva, crying together. She's been taken care by the amazing volunteers in the Wizo Center in Jerusalem by Ronit Pratt and Levana. We took a long time talking and comforting Ziva and crying together. Binyamin has an older sister who is also a graduate of Wizo Nachlat Yehuda and a younger brother who idolized Binyamin, who was like a father to him. And the young boy was absolutely broken. In the Ethiopian culture in Israel, as in many immigrant cultures, the oldest children in the family, the ones that have grown up in Israel, serve as a bridge between their immigrant parents and the society around them. So this was a huge, huge loss to the family in so many ways. Getting back to what Wizo is doing on the ground. Our volunteers are active all over the country, caring for people in their community and working to bring food, clothing, and other assistance to people of the South and to our soldiers. We have launched a campaign called With Wizo, You Are Never Alone, which offers a wide range of support services provided by Wizo volunteers to women whose spouses have been called to military service. These volunteers will babysit, do your food shopping, help you cook, and of course, lend a sympathetic ear and a loving embrace. The base for our volunteer work in Israel has always been Wizo Israel branches and secondhand shops, Bigudiot. Most were closed at the beginning of the war, but more and more of these have gradually reopened, and we are now up to 42 centers. But even in places that were forced closed by the war, our devoted volunteers found ways to organize and work to benefit those who need help the most. These efforts in dozens of communities throughout Israel are being led by Ora Korazim, chairperson of Wizo Israel, who seems to be everywhere all the time with her incredible energy, passion, and leadership. We have increased the hours and staffing of our 3 national telephone hotlines, which have been flooded with calls. One for the advice to parents of small children, as you can imagine, now is going through the ceiling. One for women victims of domestic violence, and one for men in the cycle of domestic violence.
Anita,
Yeah.
1 second. We now have Portuguese translation.
Okay.
So anybody who needs the translation, go to the globe at the bottom and press on Portuguese.
Thank you, Danny. 3 of our Wizo youth villages are home to 250 participants in the NALE program. These are Jewish teenagers from around the world who come to Israel to live and study. Many of these children came to us last year as refugees from the war-torn Ukraine. Imagine the trauma they are experiencing, going through another terrible war, but we are doing everything we can to ease their fears and homesickness. I visited Nachlat Yehuda earlier this week, together with Mireille Manucherian, co-president of Wizo USA, who came to Israel on a solidarity mission of the leaders of the American Jewish community. First of all, we discovered that Nachlat's dining room has been turned into a regional center for packing and distributing care packages to soldiers, residents of the South, and local residents of Rishon LeZion who are in distress. We met with some of the NALE students and it was amazing.
Encontramos alguns alunos do NALE e foi incrível ver como
Came to lift their spirits and instead they lifted us. They are so grateful to Wizo. They praised the wonderful food, the level of studies, everything. When I asked, not me, Mireille asked actually, what was lacking? At the beginning, they said nothing, we have everything. And then a little girl said, okay, I would like to have a ping pong table. And another boy said, we need computers, laptop computers. From there, we visited another Wizo youth village, Wizo Gan Vanov in Petah Tikva, which is hosting over 100 displaced Israelis, both from the south and the north. These are people who have lost their homes or were forced to leave them. We met with a number of women with their children and grandmothers. Most of their husbands have been called to the army. I was deeply touched, but not surprised, to see the incredible hospitality we're extending to these families. They are being smothered in kindness and generosity, being fed delicious and plentiful food with all kinds of recreational and educational activities being provided to them. And so importantly, to their children. The village staff has gone all out to help them, including much needed emotional and psychological support, for which they were super grateful. It was so beautiful to see the children roaming around the open and green spaces, playing with animals in the petting zoo, and simply being in a place that is so calm, loving, and therapeutic. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis have been displaced from their homes, and Israeli hotels are filled with people from places like Sderot and Ashkelon. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, because they told me that the people at Gan Vanov are having an experience unlike any other, including those staying at the fanciest hotels, because there is nothing like the total loving embrace of Wizo. Our parents' home, a facility for the elderly with 110 residents between ages of 75 and 105 years old, including 35 Holocaust survivors, is operating. And we are taking very good care of these wonderful people who have contributed so much to our country. Here too, we have begun taking displaced Israelis from the South and housing them in parents' homes. To give you an idea of the kind of people who we are hosting, one family from Beersheba is a single mother struggling with cancer. Remember, Ichilov, the hospital is really close to the parents' home. Her 2 parents, both over 90, and a granddaughter. We have been able to host these families with the generous support of donors from our Wizo Federation. We continue to support 140 women and 250 children in 9 different communities who are part of our safety net program, a diverse support program for women after they leave domestic violence shelters, to help ensure that they are not compelled to return to their violent spouses. These women face constant challenges, even in normal times, but the situation is so much worse during wartime. Here too, thank you, we're benefiting from the support of you, our federations. These are just a few of the many initiatives that Wizo is taking during this time. We're everywhere in Israeli society, and every day brings new initiatives, new ways of helping our people. I would like to thank our Wizo's volunteer leadership, President Esther Moore, and all the members of the World Wizo Executive for their constant support, their work in the field, their efforts in raising funds and opening doors, and their personal generosity, as many have made donations to our emergency campaign. And the backbone of our organization is our professional staff. Our 6,000 employees led by our CEO, Mira Menes, and our senior and middle management. Really, I'm telling you, I stand in awe and gratitude to this incredible team of professionals who work around the clock to keep Wizo at the highest possible level of operation, of efficiency, of initiative and action while operating in the most difficult conditions of uncertainty, sharing the same sadness, fears, and trauma that every Israeli is feeling since October 7th. I am pleased to inform you that a number of our key services are gradually returning to operation. As of today, we have reopened 132 of our daycare centers out of a total of 167. There are now over 5,000 babies and toddlers being cared for again by our devoted teams. Most of the centers are not operating at full capacity because we have had to limit the number of children in each center. Why? Because if there's a red alert for incoming rockets, a frequent occurrence in most places in the country, there is no way that these daycare teachers can move 70 babies and toddlers from their classrooms to the bomb shelter in 90 seconds. Our high schools are also reopening, and we hope that developments in the world will not force Israel to again close down these educational institutions, which would be terrible for the kids, as we saw in Corona, their parents, and the economy. Let's be optimistic. Most of our services that care for the most at-risk populations are operating and never stopped operating. Our women's shelters, foster and family units such as Neve Wizo, and our Mishpachtonim and emergency centers in our youth village. Wizo Ahuzat Eladim in Haifa is operating and the children are back in school. Our two major centers in Beersheba for extreme high-risk teenage girls and young women, Adi and Makom Balev, which were closed from the beginning of the war, reopened yesterday, with small groups that will be expanded next week. But even while they were closed, our professional teams and volunteers are keeping in close, daily touch with all these young women, providing them with food and other physical needs, and providing counseling and support to help them get through this very difficult period. Friends, there is so much more I could tell you about so many personal stories of tragedy or heroism and of simply enormous love and endless giving. This is Wizo. Wizo is also active in the international efforts concerning the 220 hostages, many of them women, small children, babies, and the elderly. We have marshaled our powers of soft diplomacy and launched a global campaign demanding their immediate release. We call on you, all of you, our members around the world, to join us by appealing to local and federal governments in our country, Wizo is also a member of the Council of Women's Organizations in Israel. At this time, Rama Einav, a member of Wizo's executive, she serves as the president of the council on behalf of Wizo. And the Council of Women in itself is a member of various international women's organizations, such as the International Council of Women and International Council of Jewish Women. Rama also decided to use those platforms to reach as wide an audience as possible, and ask for their help in reaching out to decision makers and politicians in their countries, and ask them to exert international pressure to release all the hostages who are held in Gaza. As a result, dozens of letters have so far been sent to key people in different countries around the world. I cannot conclude without mentioning the absolutely incredible show of solidarity we have gotten from all our 38 federations around the world. The international emergency campaign we launched has been an overwhelming success, bringing millions of shekels so urgently needed to keep our organization running when there is so much uncertainty and financing urgent needs of the moment. It is important for me to elaborate at this point. As many of you know, Wizo's largest source of income by far is our daycare center network. When the war started, the daycare centers just shut down, and though we are gradually reopening, we're still at less than half of the regular number of children. And this is only after more than 2 weeks. Parents will not want to pay for a service they did not get, meaning that Wizo's revenues for October will be severely reduced, and nobody knows how long this situation will last. Meanwhile, we do have 3,500 daycare center staff who need to be paid, and many of them are desperately worried that they will not get the next salary. The only and obvious solution is that the government reimburse Wizo and the other daycare center organizations, not only us. We have over 20,000 caretakers all over the country so that we can pay our staff. Unfortunately, despite constant efforts on our part, we have received a very partial answer from the government and no solution so far. This is a terrible situation and creates so much uncertainty about the near future, how we will manage. I'm sharing this with you because you are our partners, and I think you all should know about this. Therefore, the outpouring of financial support from around the world Wizo is so incredibly important and valuable at this time. And please, I appeal to you. We need you to keep on raising money. But your support goes beyond your generous philanthropy. Although you are far away, we feel your love and deep concern very strongly. We are one family, Wizo, Israel, the Jewish people. We will survive this. There's no question about it. We will overcome and we will flourish as long as we stay together. Am Israel Chai. And now we will show you a short video, and then I will say a few words about Rolene Marks. Please, Danny, can you show the video?
One second.
Hi, everybody. I'm in Wizo Nachat Yehuda. I'm in the cafeteria, which has been made out for a logistic center in this area in Wizo. We don't only give to our kids, they give back, and they learn how to give back to the society. And every day we send from here packages to soldiers and needy families from around the country.
In time of war, Wizo is still supporting and thinking about our women and children who suffer from domestic violence. Today, we bought a lot of products, food products for these women and children, and now we're organizing for them packages of food.
Thank you. We just wanted to give you a little taste of what we're doing here. It's not an official video. It's just a spur of the moment video. I now pass the baton to Rolene Marks, who most of you know very well. Rolene serves as a member of the World Wizo Executive, responsible for Hasbara and public diplomacy. Rolene has been intensely active since the first hours of the war and has kept us all closely informed of all important developments, not only in the war being waged in Gaza and southern Israel, but in the titanic battle being staged everywhere around the world. I don't know about you, but the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I open my WhatsApp and I look at what Rolene sent, because she wakes up really early and she updates us really, really early. Thank you. I want to take advantage of this place to say thank you to Rolene for all you do. When Rolene completes her presentation, we will all join together to sing Atikva. Rolene, all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That's how rumors are spread. When you tell people you wake up with me every morning, that's how rumors spread. I do have to apologize, guys. I'm going to keep this as short and to the point as humanly possible, because I actually have to get off and go on air on radio in South Africa at 6:15. So if there are questions, I'll take them very, very short and sharp. I am sitting in my shelter, and just understand that we are still getting barrages of rockets fired at us. So if some of us disappear quickly, it's because we've had to run to our shelters, but I'm in mine, so I'll just close the door and keep on keeping on. Before I talk about the situation, I just want to address so many of you, because now I can see your beautiful faces. I know that so many of you around the world are feeling helpless and are feeling frustrated because you feel you're not here to be part of our collective war effort here. But please know that every single one of you is just as much a part of us here as any one of us in Israel. You are holding us up. You are holding us together. This is a very, very, very difficult time for us in Israel, a very emotional time. We are a country very, very deep in grief and shock, but we are 100% focused on this country defeating the forces of evil, because make no mistake that this is not just a war between Hamas and Israel. This is a war between light and dark, good and evil, and Israel stands on the vanguard of humanity. We are on that front line, and every single one of us, including you guys, are here with us. If you're praying, if you're lighting candles, if you're donating money, if you're packing boxes, if you're sending goods, if you're crocheting beanies and blankets, every single one of you is a warrior right here next to us. So I'm just going to ask your forgiveness if I cry or if I get angry. This is a very, very difficult time for us, and I want you to feel it from us exactly how we are feeling it here. So let's go back to the morning of the 7th of October, which started like every Saturday morning. You grab a coffee, maybe you sit down to watch TV, feed your family, and all of a sudden, the rocket app that we all have goes crazy. And I remember very clearly saying to my husband, either something big is happening or the app is malfunctioning, because it's absolutely going berserk. This was 6:30 in the morning, Israel time. And he said to me, he said, you know, we've gone through this before. It's probably another flare up and we'll have iron domes and everything will be fine and we'll go back to normal. When we started to hear the booms and our building started to shake, we knew that something was very, very abnormal. And throughout the day, as news unfolded, we started to hear of an infiltration into our southern communities. And we watched this thinking, no, this can't be possible. Maybe it's only a few errant Hamas terrorists that managed to get in, but I'm sure that will be sorted out as quickly as possible. And then the images started to come out, the pictures, the footage, and I remember saying to so many of you, please be very careful what we're getting. We don't know if it's verified, and we couldn't believe what we were seeing. Young people at a peace festival on the border with Gaza, holding a festival there, young people saying to the other side, this is our belief. We believe in peace. We're showing you our dream of peace in the hope that one day you will join us. And all of a sudden, they were running for their lives. They were running for their lives, and 260 of them will never, ever have that life again. Shot in the back, burnt alive, women raped. A level of barbarity and depravity we still struggle to wrap our heads around. And then we started to hear about Sderot and see the pictures. And we started to hear about the kibbutzim and the cries from the people inside their homes calling for help. We now know that those calls went unanswered because in the police stations and the bases close to them, soldiers and police were slaughtered. Those that did manage to get there fought like lions and lionesses with the small weapons that they had. But those Hamas terrorists, we now know thousands of them who came through on paragliders, burst through our borders, came ready for war. They came with RPGs, those are rocket-propelled grenades. They had drones with rocket-propelled grenades shooting down on people. They came with anti-human mines, Kalashnikov weapons. They came to kill everything in sight, and kill they did. They didn't care if you were Jewish, although Jews were the prime target. They didn't care if you were Christian or Muslim, Arab Israeli, foreign national, tourist, or even pet. They mowed through our communities, committing acts of depravity that, even though as a journalist covering this, and it has been extremely difficult as a journalist to have to cover this war. And I've seen the pictures, I still am in a deep state of shock that this was done to our people in our home on what was supposed to be a day of celebration, a day we would celebrate receiving the Torah, Simchat Torah. And by the end of the 7th of October, we were at war. Our country is at war. And I want to be clear, this is not like Tzuk Eitan or other military operations where we have been very careful not to use the word war. We are at war. As we speak, we have hundreds of thousands of IDF warriors, men and women, stationed on our border in Gaza and on the north in Lebanon, in preparation for what could happen. We have hundreds of thousands waiting for their orders should they need to go into Gaza for the next stage of this war, which is a ground incursion. That is a very, very, very difficult type of warfare because we know that we are dealing with a merciless enemy that is bunkered down deep in tunnels under the grounds of Gaza, holding what we now know as 224, and we expect that number to go up, precious family members, Israeli hostages and hostages from many of your countries around the world. These are babies, children, nursing mothers away from their babies, the elderly, Holocaust survivors, people who are disabled, foreign nationals, men and women and whole families. And in those communities that they left behind, and I'm going to get very, very graphic here, but we have to know what happened to us so that we can tell their stories. Whole communities were tortured, mutilated, women and children raped to the point where their pelvic bones were shattered. They filmed old people elderly people getting murdered, uploaded those images to their families. They burned people alive in their homes, and they slaughtered without mercy. We now know that this was the orders given to these terrorists who have been raised on a diet since their mother's milk on hatred for Jews and for the state of Israel. We saw a level of barbarity that we haven't seen since the Shoah. The 7th of October was our worst day in Jewish history since the day of the Shoah, and it happened in our home here in the state of Israel. Our numbers have it as 1,400 murdered, and that number is expected to rise. We still have people missing. And many of you say to me every single day, what is the situation for Gaza? Well, the situation is as follows. By the end of the day, on the 7th of October, we were at war, a war that we as Israelis did not want. On the 6th of October, when there was a ceasefire, over 400,000 people from Gaza were coming into Israel on a daily basis to work in the fields, to work in the towns. But by the end of the 7th of October, we were at war and striking Hamas targets in Gaza, fighting a war that Hamas invited on their people and our people. Now, as you know, Israel does everything in our power as humanly as possible to mitigate civilian casualties. Unfortunately, in a state of war and dealing with a terror organization like Hamas, who use their civilians as human shields, unfortunately, this is not always a possibility. Just today, we got audio from the IDF, a recording of them asking and telling people from Gaza, get to safety, get to the safer areas. And the people of Gaza saying, we can't. They're blocking our roads, and they're even shooting us if we try to get away. Many of you are asking me, what is the humanitarian situation on the ground? And the situation is as follows. We are at war. We will not allow in humanitarian aid from outside Israel. Not only did Hamas damage the crossings, Kerem, Shalom, Kisufim, but the rules of war dictate that we are not responsible for providing humanitarian aid. We are responsible for facilitating through our partners that it goes in without being affected or hindered by us, which is exactly what we are doing. With a war between Israel and Hamas comes a global media war and a war on streets in your countries. I am very, very, very aware of the anti-Semitism in all of your countries. I'm following that extremely closely with my partners and colleagues who monitor this as well. What is Israel hoping to achieve here? What is our sole aim? Our sole aim is to destroy Hamas, root and stem and head of the snake. Our aim here is not to go to war with the people of Gaza. I want to be very clear. Our war is with Hamas. It is not with the people of Gaza. Since Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, unilaterally, including our dead, but leaving our greenhouses, we have had this non-stop cycle of rockets and mortars and Israeli response, rockets and mortars and Israeli response. And now the Israeli people demand, we demand that for once and for all, this terrorism that holds us captive is rooted out for once and for all. What that will look like afterwards, we don't know yet, but we do not want to occupy Gaza. We do not want to rule over Palestinians. We want peace and quiet, and for our citizens in the south to return to their homes, and for children to once more be able to play again without the fear of rockets and the fear of terror. On our northern border, we are very aware that we have a massive enemy in the form of Hasbara, another Iranian proxy terror organization. We know the power of Hasbara. Over the years, our army has been planning and practicing for a scenario where war will open up on multiple fronts. We have had rockets and exchanges of fire coming from southern Lebanon onto our IDF positions in the north, and we have responded. Along with the many Palestinian refugees that you are hearing about in the media, we also have hundreds of thousands of internal Israeli refugees. We have had to evacuate towns within a 7-kilometer radius of the border with Gaza and in the north as well, as we prepare for any possible fighting. The safety and security of our citizens is our priority before anything else. When will a ground incursion happen? We don't know exactly, but we know that it will be imminent. It will be shortly. The Wall Street Journal are reporting that America wants to ensure their air defenses before we do anything, just in case this war spreads throughout the region. This was Hamas's endgame, not just to murder and slaughter as many Jews as possible, and along with that, as many Israeli civilians as possible, and to hold over 220 hostage. Their modus operandi, their aim was to disrupt and inflame the region and turn the region against any potential peace that may happen, and inflame the street and start a war, not just with the people of Israel, but with Jews around the world. That is what Iran wants. That is what their proxies that are sponsored by them want. And right now, Israel has said, for our families, for our friends, for our colleagues, for our home, for our very country, and for you, for the world, we will go to war. We will go and defend our country. We are extremely, extremely grateful for the international support that is standing next to Israel. Yes, we understand in the halls of the United Nations, it's a different battlefield, it's a vicious battlefield, but we have our incredible allies in the United States, the United Kingdom, France, European countries, where we haven't just seen a steady flow of foreign leaders saying we respect and we stand by Israel's right to defend herself, and we support Israel wanting to take out Hamas. We have seen that in the form of military support coming from the United States. It's moored off our coast, and from the United Kingdom, who have sent vessels and spy planes as well. Earlier today, we welcomed a large contingent of US Marines coming to the region. So should this spread throughout the region, we are prepared. We know exactly who we are dealing with. Some of you have been asking, what happened? How did this happen? And there are many theories, and there's a lot being asked and a lot being investigated, but now is not the time to have those conversations. There is only one priority right now, and the priority has many different parts: to defeat Hamas, to bring a new security reality to the Middle East and to our neighbors, and to bring our hostages home safely. Every single one of them, from 9-month-old Kefir to 90-plus-year-old Holocaust survivor. Every single one of them, home, safe and sound, and in the comfort and in the hug of their loving family. This is a very, very personal war for all of us. This is not abstract, especially for our Wizo family. So many of us, and many of you were with me at the last EGM when we went down to the south. We did Sderot and Netiva Asara. We placed our tiles on that wall of peace in the hope that we would be building peace between Israel and her neighbors. I don't think that wall still stands. We went to Sderot. We hugged our families, our staff, our colleagues who keep those citizens safe. We went to see the tunnels, those brutal tunnels, where we know now that our hostages were dragged through and are being kept in conditions I don't even want to contemplate, because I don't for 1 second believe that they are humane and kind to our hostages. I believe that we're dealing with an enemy that knows exactly how to manipulate the media and how to manipulate their hostages. I'm dreading the day that we open up schools and daycare centers and we have to take stock of who has returned to us and who has not. Because as this country's emotional first responders and the backbone of Israeli society, we too have already buried so many kids who have fallen in defense of our country on that horrific day. And we are preparing for many more who will fall in the fight for our freedom. And we buried more kids, more colleagues' kids, more friends' children who were at the party and in the surrounding towns and kibbutzim. And we know so many who are being held hostage. When we say that Israel is a small country and we all know somebody, we all know somebody. It's this is very, very personal to us. So in the interest of taking a few questions, because I see the time is marching on, I just want to say one thing. Remember on whose shoulders we all stand. Remember what we have survived in the generations before us. Pogroms, inquisitions, Shoah, wars, anti-Semitism in our country, exile, and we are still standing here. We are still standing here, and we will stand with our heads held high and with our heads held proud. And I'm not going to say Am Yisrael Chai, because I think that's been said already, but I'm going to say what we are all saying here in Israel. B'yachad nenatzeach. Together, we will win.
Thank you, Rolene. Danny, how do you want to do this? Does anybody have we have time for 1-2 questions maximum, I think. Anybody wants to ask Rolene? I can't see the whole thing, so it's difficult.
I can see there's 2 questions. There's 2 hands. Oh, here's I've got some messages here.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Wendy.
Those 2 hands that are up from the beginning. I think they're by mistake up. No, I don't think they are questions per se.
No questions. You're such an easy crowd today.
It's a big crowd. It's a big crowd today. So I don't think we've ever had such a big crowd, not in the worst times in Corona. This is really hard. It's incredible. So thank you.
How can you defeat such unity?
You can't. So with this,
I've got one here.
Yes.
Do I think the Abraham Accords are in danger? It's a great question. I think this is the true test to see if our accords have legs. I believe they do. We heard from the foreign minister of Bahrain earlier today, and he said now more than ever, we need to work for integration in the region. Yes, it's very, very upsetting to see what has happened with Jordan and the Queen of Jordan, but I think there's also domestic issues at play there. So I don't think that it will threaten our peace treaties with Egypt and Jordan. And I don't think it's going to threaten the Abraham Accords. And actually, I don't think it's going to threaten potential peace with the Saudis. I think that they're juggling a lot of balls. One is to show the Palestinians that they still support their cause and concerns, and realizing that any path to a two-state solution or a new security or a new situation for the Palestinians is going to have to involve Israel as well. So I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say that the Abraham Accords have legs. What program am I talking on this afternoon?
That's what they're asking.
My usual program on Chai FM, which I'm doing double time at the moment, morning and evening. And I think the other question was for you, Anita, on measures that Wizo is taking.
Measures for what?
I saw here.
I think the brief was encompassing enough, and look, I hope this war ends soon, but if it doesn't, we will have another update. We will try to update as much as we can, myself, Rolene, all the professionals that are behind us. So Rolene, I think you have to leave soon, you have your program. So we will finish with the Hatikva that has always given us hope and will continue to give us hope. Thank you very much. It was incredible seeing all these friendly faces. Believe me, when we say here that you gives us strength, you do. You are holding us from the back, and that's how we feel about it. So thank you for everything you do, and continue doing it, please, because this is going to be long and we need. Oh, I'm sorry, we have an alarm. I have to go to the shelter. So sorry. Why?
Guys, just a reminder, I'm in my shelter, so I'll just talk to you. If you want, I see questions about social media.
1 second, Rolene, we're going to be back in a few minutes. So everybody can wait. Everybody wait, we'll be back in a second. Go on, Rolene.
Okay, we've got a lot of, I'm here in my shelter, so I don't have to go anywhere. But you can hear the rockets coming in. This is quite a big barrage of rockets. For things like social media, that kind of thing, I'm very happy to sit with your federations individually. Okay, just bear with me. You're going to probably hear the booms in the background as well. This is our reality. This is all across the center going north. This is Tel Aviv. Somebody asked, will workers from Gaza be allowed in? At the moment, that is not an eventuality. I think that's a conversation in a couple of years' time. Right now, the wound is too raw and it's too painful, and we are in a situation of war, so that won't be happening. Okay, barrage seems to have stopped now. Somebody asked, where are we? Tel Aviv. I'm in Modi'in in the center. The office is in Tel Aviv. Is Israel going to accept the international pressure to get peace and sleep with the enemy again? No, there will be no ceasefire. There might be,
Wow,
Um,
we're,
Can you hear the booms? Anybody hear the booms? We got the booms falling us, the boom zoom. Sorry, Rolene.
no problem. Yeah, there we go.
לא, הייתי באנמיוט.
Can you hear?
רוצים שנהיה קצת היסטריים? אומייגוד.
אתמול באותה
Well, you've just had firsthand Wizo under fire and just us carrying on. Somebody asked, can we attack the tunnels? Not a simple process. We believe our hostages are in the tunnels. And the aim before attacking tunnels is to get them out.
Rolene, we're coming back to our room and we will put on a tikva. Give us 1 minute, please.
Okay, I'll wait for you to do hatikva.
That was weird.
Are businesses open, restaurants? There are some. I was in Tel Aviv earlier today. There are some. Many restaurants are actually closed and cooking for soldiers because we're a country of Jews. We got to feed our soldiers. Supermarkets full. The supermarkets here up and down in Modi'in, up and down. What happens to the economy at this time? There are plans in place to help boost the economy, but my suggestion to you is when it's possible, when everything is calmer, come here and spend your money. Let's boost this economy. Here we go again. They're asking me about anti-Semitism. I think, guys, if you want me to do specific sessions with you in your federations, in your countries, let's schedule that so that we can do that as well.
I'm sorry, we just came back. There were lots of Kipat Barzel was shooting like crazy. We heard big booms. Rolene, you want to finish?
I just want to say thank God for Kipat Barzel.
Yeah, I'm running up and down 5 floors, so I'm going to be in good shape after this war, I guess. Let's do a little bit of humor. We have to. Let's do the Atikva, please. Monique or whom? Danny?
Me, it's me.
Okay, Danny, please put the Atikva.
1 second.
Let's finish with our hope, Atikva. Okay, my friends, with this, we finish our report on Hasbara. Keep safe, everyone. We send you kisses and hugs, and thank you again for everything you do for us. Bye-bye.
I'm going to leave the chat open for a few more minutes. If people want to give more messages, I see everybody's putting in messages.